Hello, and welcome to Enlightened Empaths, your community for the spiritually awakened, where we discuss, explore, and connect with fellow empaths, healers, intuitives, and seekers. Hello, and welcome to the show. Today, we're going to be discussing how to spark your creativity and get your message out there. If you need a little boost or inspiration to start growing your spiritually based business or write that book, then today's show is meant for you. Joining us is Meg Calvin. She helps business owners write, market, and sell their Amazon best-selling books on Kindle, paperback, and Audible. She's an Amazon best-selling author, writer, and marketing coach, master air guitar player, wife, mom, and friend. She's best known for her intuitive gifts and unconventional practices that help writers become creatively unblocked, and her award-worthy performance as a tree and A Midsummer's Night Dream in the 3rd grade. Well, Meg, if that's not a sign from spirit that you're supposed to do this work, I don't know what is.
Indeed, I received the call and I have answered.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell people a little bit about how you got started, because aside from your business now of really helping writers get out there, your journey to this world of spirit is even more interesting.
Yes, I was on a church staff as a minister in the mainline Protestant church for 15 years. And yes, and how I got there, like all of your guests and other listeners, was such an exciting journey that served me beautifully at the time. And how it all started, and I promise this won't be an autobiography, the earliest memory that matters to the story is when I first felt my first memory of feeling the divine, feeling God's healing presence. And that was when I was 6. My family had experienced big T trauma. I think that's always important to say when a child experiences trauma, that big T or little t, most likely the parents were feeling it too, and other siblings were feeling it. And so collectively, the first 6 years of my life as Meg was really hard. When I was 6, my mom, she had a coworker who sang in an all-Black gospel choir in an army base in Germany. And she said, Meg's always singing. She should sing in our choir. And on Sunday morning, as I was breathing and learning to breathe like a singer and feeling the harmony, I felt this all divine, palpable presence of a God that knows all, that loves, that heals. Even those wounds we think aren't healable, God, there's no wound that's beyond God's healing. And I felt that in a very real way when I was 6, and I fell in love with the church. That applause that I felt at the church when I would sing, it met a need that I wasn't getting at home, like many performers in that season of my development. So I subconsciously equated applause for unconditional love. And I began preaching when I was 13. And so my missionary grandparents, they would take me to other churches, mission trips, conferences, and I was this ecclesial show pony, if you will. I would sing and dance.
Wait, I have to interrupt you there.
Yep,
I have to. You're 13
totally.
and your parents are like, all right, Meg,
Yeah.
you've sung in choirs across the world. Now you're going to preach the gospel. Did they give you topics? Were you tap dancing?
Yeah.
What were you
I
doing?
love this. I was addicted to church. And so when the opportunity came up on Youth Sunday we want a teenager to preach today, I was like, sign me up. And I preached over, was very exegetically weak, looking back now, but I preached over Proverbs 17:22, and a cheerful heart is good medicine. And what I shared, and I ended it by singing Bing Crosby's song from White Christmas, when I'm worried and I can't sleep, I count my blessings. The take-home nugget of that sermon was, the more that we focus on positive things that God has given us, the more positive things we see we already have. And so that sermon sparked my grandmother, who gets lots of credit for pushing me, and other mentors of, we need her at the pulpit more. So both male and female mentors pushed me along the whole way of my journey, thankfully. But yeah, so 13, that was how it all started.
So it filled a very strong need in your life and was helping you and filling some holes from your big T trauma. And
Yes.
then it sounds like you're heading to a point where you're breaking up with the church.
Yeah, great question. I still attend church, and my daughter and I sing in the choir. It's not the church that I was on staff at for 15 years, but it is the same denomination, United Methodist. And I did not burn bridges. I feel a need to say that. Still friends with people there at that former church.
So I like that. So you found a way to
Yeah.
incorporate your love of spirit, your love of crystals, because I see you're holding a crystal just like I am,
Yes.
your love of all of this woo-woo esoteric, and still stay within the confines of the church. I think that's beautiful. I walk that balance myself. A little bit trickier in my church. I love the Methodist faith because I don't know a lot about it, but one of my good friends is a Methodist, and it seems very inclusive of women.
Oh, 100%. Yes, none of the scars that I had the privilege of healing came from that wound of that I never felt that I was less than. I always felt empowered by the men, whether they were under me in leadership or peers or ahead over me. I always felt that I was called and 100% beyond talented to do the work.
So how did you get called to do this work you're doing now?
So when I was 28, my same grandmother took me to a somatic Enneagram retreat. And it was at that retreat that something broke open in me. And I realized that I had been lit. And I wonder if this is just what happens when you're about to hit 30. That could be it. However, that doesn't take away from the magic of that retreat. It came to me that I had been living my whole life from this hustle and grind of appeasing and impressing others, and not from a place of what brings me pleasure and joy. And does God actually care about my pleasure and my joy? Can I even trust myself as a divine co-creator? And I was so thankful for the metaphysical world, actually, because that helped empower me to trust my desires, that my desires were safe. I didn't pick that up in seminary or or from my family. But at this retreat, the facilitator, after all the tears and all the beautiful things, the facilitator asked me a very simple question, which I love guiding authors through now. The same question of, Meg, if you could do anything all day and no one would ever know you did it, there would be no one to applaud you, but you would still feel so much pleasure and glee, what would that thing be? And for me, it was two things came up at that magical retreat, and that was writing, because I love studying curriculum writing in seminary. And I love that part of my job, and then motherhood. And so in the next 2 years, I did exactly that. I became a mom and I started my first book, and it got picked up by Whiff and Stock. So my first two books were with traditional publishing companies. That book, like it does, opens for people that want it. It can open up the door for speaking at conferences. And I began doing that. And I began hearing from more, as I call them, overcommitted Christians or recovering holy rollers, that they would whisper to me, kind of with a little bit of shame, I have this book idea. But they, like me, had these limiting beliefs around marketing being egotistical. Can I trust myself? Can I trust myself to monetize my abilities? Is it egotistical? So, all these limiting beliefs that our beautiful religions gave us. So, I began helping people with that. It actually broke my heart when I would hear these amazingly healing and helpful book ideas and then realize they weren't getting out into the world. And so, I remember telling my friend before I began taking classes on my intuitive gifts and strengthening those, almost a year before I took those classes, I remember telling my friend, she said, so are you still thinking you're going to retire at this church? Because that was literally my plan. I would stay at the same exact church well into my 60s. And I told her, no, something different is coming. I don't know what it is, but I had this inner knowing. And so with the second book, there was a hard chapter, like every author experiences, where they don't want to write. From not all, most authors have a chapter or a vignette they don't want to write. They want to hide it. And I had one of those moments. And that moment was around the damage that purity culture in the South, because my teen years were in Texas, early childhood was in Germany, military family. So I wanted to really voice areas that I had struggled with around sexuality and sensuality and shame about my body. And that there were good, beautiful, life-giving things in the church, but there were also things that weren't life-giving when it came to sex and sensuality and trusting my body. So I wanted to write about that, all about that. And I was terrified. So of course I didn't write about it. Then the editor reached back out and said, you have 2 weeks before we go to publish, you can change. Is there anything you want to change? And immediately I felt it in my core, I have to change that chapter. I have to tell everything, not just for me, but for someone else. And I was so scared. Well, that same week, I used to host a podcast, and we had a guest on our show from Emory University. The modern day mystic is his name. And he said, listen to your dreams. Our ancestors speak in our dreams. There are signs in our dreams. And I thought, oh my goodness, a Christian telling me to listen to what is this? Well, the next day I was listening to a podcast by my friend Jamal Javanji. He had on Reverend Dr. Katie Valentine, who I have since become very close friends with. And this was 2019. And Katie said, listen to your dreams. Your ancestors speak in your dreams. Your past life speak in your dreams. And she visited some about Dr. Stevens' work with birthmarks and how we can read those. And at this time, I did not believe in that to be true. I thought it would be sinful for me to believe that as a minister. So I thought, oh my gosh, this is crazy, but I think this is a message for me. And all that I knew about my ancestors was that in Scotland, I had two ancestors burned at the stake in a couple after they procreated, obviously, the McNains, and they were burned at the stake for writing Protestant literature that really rocked the boat for some Catholics. And so my grandmother told me that when I was applying for seminary. It's her little way of saying, do it, do it, do it, do it. And that's all I knew. And I knew that my daughter and I, who was 4 at the time, had almost identical birthmarks on our legs that do look like a burn mark. I'm taking all this in. I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. This can't be. No, this is just ridiculous, Meg. This is your imagination. This is what the therapist told you about when you were a kid, that your imagination is just too big. So anyway, go to bed. That morning, my 4-year-old walked down the hall and she was rubbing her eyes, so cute. And she wasn't afraid. And we know that matters for dream interpretation. She wasn't afraid of what happened in the dream, but she said, Mom, I had the weirdest dream. I said, you did? What? And of course, I was all alert. Tell me, tell me, tell me. She said, it was you and I. We were together and there were these people coming with sticks of fire poking our legs. I have chills right now. And I had chills in the moment. The part of my brain that makes up meanings and words to things spoke up and said, are you studying fire safety at school? She said no. And I knew immediately what she was saying. So I called Jamal, my friend, who was already very more comfortable with the metaphysical world. And I said, Jamal, told him the situation. I said, what do I do with what do I do with this? And then he said, without missing a beat, he goes, Meg, you're not going to be burned this time. Change the chapter. And I felt tingles on my eyes. And I literally said, I feel like I've awakened to a whole different dimension. And he said, oh, you have. And I said, what do I do now? And he said, just speak the words, I'm open for whatever messages you have for me. And I did. So I began taking classes from Reverend Dr. Katie Valentine on everything metaphysical that felt like home to me, and then launched my business. That was in January of 2020. So a few months later, I started my business. So yeah.
Wow, that is absolutely fascinating. Several spiritual awakenings.
What I love is you're so articulate about your past with the church and your connection with God. And we talk to a lot of folks who have had that switch. They've switched horses. Do you feel like you're connecting to the same energy as you did when you were in the church?
Oh, 100%.
I love that.
Yes.
Love that.
And I'm thankful. It is a weird childhood. And that was the basis of my second book, which is satirical and self-deprecating. Like, how weird is it that I was addicted to the church from 13 to 32? It's weird. It's really weird. And they had different words for intuitive gifts, but it was the same gift that I was polishing. I do believe I was channeling as a 13-year-old and singing on your other podcast with Deb. That I love the emphasis that she puts on clairaudience, that it's not just little sentence downloads or here, ask this question to your client. It's also music. Because of what I went through as a kid, I didn't start speaking till I was 4, but I would sing. And my mom thought it was so weird. And looking back now, moments of pain as a child, I would sing, and I've always heard harmony beautifully, easily, if effortlessly. And I feel now that those were guides that were singing over me, singing with me. And so I'm so thankful for the church, and definitely same God, 100, same being 100%.
Well, and that you paid attention because I always tell people that's how our guides talk to us. You were given the same
Mhm.
message at least twice in the span of 2 days, and then you
Yeah.
had confirmation from your daughter's dream. And so that's beautiful. And so
Mhm.
I'm sure you believe a part of your purpose is to continue the work that that couple in Scotland was unable to.
Mhm.
Oh, I love
100%.
that. All right, so tell us about your business and what you offer for people.
Yes. My team and I are basically an all-inclusive resort. So we have everything authors need. I have 11 different packages to write, market, and sell an Amazon best-selling memoir or work of nonfiction currently, or those two genres. Get it to bestseller on Audible, Kindle, and paperback. And when my business started in 2020, all that I did was I'll help you write it, I'll help you submit queries to companies, and I'll help you build your brand and market it. And then in 2021, I had realized, man, at least the companies, the two main companies I was sending authors to, the royalties were so low, 86 cents for a $14 book. And the authors, my clients and myself included, it wasn't a true partnership in regards to cover art and font choice and other funky flair in the book that we like to do to make it a holistic experience. And there was a high level of censorship with some of the companies my clients were submitting to. There was a woman that in her memoir, they asked her to remove her story of rape as part of her memoir because they don't allow those words, penis or labia, in their books. So there were those moments that I realized I I know what I don't know. I know what my zone of genius is, the marketing side and the developmental structural editing side, and my favorite side, which is helping the author become unblocked. So their healing light can shine brighter in the world. I could build a team of people whose zones of geniuses are different than mine. So I did that. And then I offered authors everything they need outside of a traditional publishing company. And I've been doing that since March of 22. Yes. And so it has become that. So some authors come with an idea on a napkin. Some come with a finished manuscript. It's already been copy and line edited. I want your team to publish it, get it to bestseller, and help me make marketing fun. All sorts of packages that take care of literally everything authors need through KDP and on Amazon.
You're bringing it back to what people envision as writers.
Mm-hmm.
Not just about social media platforms or how many likes you have. It's more about everything that you're saying with the combination of stuff. What really strikes me is that it feels like you're helping people find their true voice in order to release the trauma, but also to help other people. It's very much service work. So
Oh,
you
definitely.
follow that same bead throughout your religious practice, throughout this work. It's very much about empowering people. And
Mm-hmm.
right now, the whole world, or many of us that are highly sensitive, are working through trauma, old trauma, ancestral trauma. Do you find that that's a consistent theme in what your writers bring through is on the healing aspect of what they've been through on a personal level?
When I first started my business, yes. And then it has evolved as everything healthy does. And now more corporate business owners are coming to me and they want their book to be a lead magnet. However, even though the topic, probably know where I'm going with this, the topic may not be explicitly healing based or spiritual or self care related, the blocks that are holding them back 99% of the time are. And so it's something unseen and spiritual that's holding them up that we get to together.
What are some of the main blocks you see holding people up? I know for me, one of mine was always who me,
Mm.
like who me, who wants
Mm-hmm.
to hear from me? Do you get that a lot, or
Yes.
do you have other blocks you see?
Definitely. Would you call that imposter syndrome?
Yes.
Yes, definitely. 100%. Yes. That is one. Another block is a limiting belief around money. And especially if the person is overly religious like I was, that there is this belief that piety is synonymous to poverty. Who am I to monetize? Yeah. And there's a limiting belief around money, a limiting belief around time. Like I can't be a present mom and write this book. Well, so a limiting belief around time, a limiting belief around their talent, which is also connected to identity, a limiting belief. Oh, how do I word this? We go through periods in our life when depending on the author I'm working with, I will use different words. For this podcast, I'll use the word the divine feminine, that we've lost connection with throughout our entire day, letting ourselves be moved by smells and tastes and touches, healthy touch, safe touch, and being touched by beauty throughout our day. So the more mindful we are during the day, the easier it is to feel the muse at the keyboard or the pen with the pen, because it's been turned on all day. I'm ready to be moved. I'm ready to be inspired all day. And so that's another block that I love helping writers. And one writer comes to mind that he was a retired military and now very, very Christian conservative pastor, still heart of gold. I felt the need to say that. Sorry. Forgive me. Still putting goodness out into the world. And he totally the divine masculine leading every second of his life. So one thing that we did was, through questions, I found out he's a flautist. And so, and he missed it. He missed playing the flute. And it's such a beautiful juxtaposition. This very big, strong man, giant shoulders, and just loves to play this tiny flute. And so what we started doing was 15 minutes before he would go to write, he would play the flute. And that would, of course, as you know, tap into the divine feminine. He would self-source his own love and affirmation and nurturing, and he would feel, and then he would write. And that was huge for him, turning that side of himself back on.
And you just made a really, really good point, Meg, is that connecting with that creativity, connecting with, so yes, we have to remove the blocks. Yes, we have to face the imposter syndrome, but the creativity can manifest in so many different ways. And do you have any other tricks or techniques or anything that you share with people to help them tap into that stream of consciousness more fully?
I might annoy your listeners because I'm just going to echo what you already teach, which is the importance of stillness and meditation and silence and coming home to their desires are safe. Like this, like Rumi says, what you seek also seeks you. And so often high achievers that I work with, and like I was one too, I didn't believe my desires were safe. How dare I trust them? How dare I get clear on my desires and my preferences? So that silence is key for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like to create a little ritual around when I write. I'll make a little pot of tea and I get my little crystals out and I put my laptop down and I light a candle, and that all helps me a lot. But I read something years ago. I think it was Raymond Bradbury, I can't remember, who said the audience you should write for is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no, that I just really resisted that. I was like, no, you have to always keep, because as an English teacher, that's at least in English 112, that's all we would talk about is consider your audience, consider your audience. And I really started thinking about that advice that it wasn't Raymond Bradbury. Oh, his name's going to drive me crazy. Anyway, I kept thinking about your audience is you. And when I started writing for myself, that's when it started to flow better. I'm not saying my writing got better. I don't know, but I know that my blocks and my flow, and I felt more comfortable because my audience was me. And that was, you talked about the ego. That was so foreign to me to even consider myself in the writing process, but that was helpful.
Yes, I say the same thing. It's a past version of yourself. And 5 to 7 years ago, a lot of the authors I work with are, like I said, business owners or coaches, and their ideal client is where they once were emotionally or spiritually or mentally. And so what would you tell yourself 5 to 7 years ago? And that's the I love the mysterious, energetic part of book writing. I hold the belief that even though we don't have the words for our target audience yet, and we do that later after the book is done, we create an irresistible offer and we niche down and get super specific over who the target audience is. But we don't have to have those words when we start the book, in my opinion, in my experience. But we do exactly that. What would you want to hear 5 to 7 years ago when you started this journey that you're inviting your reader on?
Yeah, that's a great question.
There are so many people that are saying it's too late. I'm too old. I don't have enough to say. Do you have a wide range of clients, age, demographic, interests?
Yes, I've been so fortunate to serve 54 authors in almost 5 years, and they have ranged from ages 35 to 84. I have three right now that are, one is 75 and then two are almost 70. And they are so open to learning social media, which for marketing, which is awesome. And I celebrate that. One of them, she is doing what every 75-year-old, not every, but most want to do, which is put in one place all of her homilies, prayers, lyrics, poems, all of her things from her career in one place. And so we're doing that. And that's so exciting.
I love that. It never is too late. So for people who are thinking about, yeah, I'd like to write a book. I'd like to get my message out there, but I don't have a platform. Because you read all the time that you have to have a platform if you're a nonfiction writer to even get anything out there. How true is that? And if there is some truth to it, what would you recommend people do?
Yes. It is important, 100%. Yes. If they want to serve other people with their book, the majority of the authors I serve, their book is a lead magnet. We craft the introduction in a way that they're passively gathering emails for their email list. And so they're going to use that book and their brand that I help them build. And they're going to use their abilities as now a master of marketing that I will make them into. They use that to get more speaking gigs as well. That's a priority for a lot of my clients, and more, they want more clients themselves. So very important. And there are different ways to go about it that you could, depending on, does the author have not necessarily the bandwidth or the capacity, but would it bring the author joy to create their own content? And if so, I would suggest the secret weapon that is Flick Social, that takes all the guessing games out of pleasing the algorithm gods and the hashtag game. It'll pollinate Instagram and TikTok for you. I don't think authors need to be on every platform. Getting clear on, is my target audience, where are they? What platform are they on? If an author is listening right now and they're thinking, it would not bring me joy to create content, then delegate it to someone that could create ads for your book on Facebook and Instagram. So you don't have to create content. There are people, reach out to me. I know lots of people, some that will do it for you, the organic social media marketing part, some that will do ads for you. And then I am not do it for you, I'm a do it with you. I'll equip you. 10 years from now, you'll still be an amazing, badass marketing author because of what you learned from me, no matter what happens to social media. I'm a do it with you person. I will make you a master of it. And so it does matter landing the plane. It does matter greatly to get your book out there. And social media can be a cesspool of unholiness, and we don't want that. We want all of the people shining positive healing light to be on there too, but you don't have to do it by yourself. You really could delegate it to someone that could do ads for you. And I think that financial investment is worth it because it's saving the author time, energy, and misery. And with that time, they could be being with their spouse or being with their kids or writing their book. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it is overwhelming. My gosh, now you're supposed to post videos and stuff on LinkedIn. And I'm like, what happened to LinkedIn being like a resume builder? But
right? Yes, I have not. I checked in with myself. It was time for me to cross over to LinkedIn, and it wasn't. I created a page, a cover photo, and then went to a training and discovered Flick Social. And it's been amazing how much it has helped with getting my message out there to more people.
yeah, in a condensed way. I love that.
I think a lot of people that are highly sensitive are hesitant to do social media marketing because of the inauthenticity of so much of it. And they don't want their product to be, or their message to be, less than what they intend it to be. And I think that's really, really difficult because it's a big C. It's a really big C. And also I think people are afraid of being judged. So how do you help people build the confidence to put themselves out there and say, what I have to say really does matter, whether it's through social media or marketing or being on Amazon?
Shadow work comes to mind. My own journey as an author, my shadow work was, it's bad that I want attention. What if people know how much I like attention? What if people think I'm just going to say it. She's too sexy. She better not be too pretty or she'll lose her authority. Who does she think she is, looking pretty? And then the opposite. Oh no, the lighting casts an angle on my very Jay Leno chin and big cheeks. I have shadow. I can't do this reel. There's shadows on my faces. So sitting in doing shadow work is very helpful for myself and for the authors I work with. What is that fear? And then we get really clear on the spiritual energetics of the book. If the book is speaking up loud to you right now, if it's gone from a whisper to a shout, it's doing that for two reasons. And that is to bring it believes that you're ready to face any hard things that are going to come up in the book when you write it, whether that is topic based or just creative process, what comes up and that is hard. The book believes you're ready. It's time. It wants to give you the joy and pleasure of releasing the book. And equally as important, not more important, equally as important, the need outside of you, inside of readers, their need is growing for a book like yours. And so that's why it is speaking louder. And so coming home to that truth gives us bravery to get in front of a window where we have light that makes us look attractive and hold our phone a little higher so there's no double chin action for some of us and shoot the reel. And moving slowly with learning reels, especially for clients that are not digital natives, moving slowly, doing one, just starting with one, seeing the feedback, the positive feedback, that step quiets the doubt of, oh, I see the fruit this has bared now. Oh, I survived. Oh, people were served by my content. Oh, that felt good to help people with my content.
I think that was a really good question, Denise, because we want to be authentic in this world, and yet so much of social media does feel inauthentic. But I think the people that do well on social media, ironically, are the authentic ones.
Mm-hmm.
And what I try to think about when I have to do anything that promotes my work, just last week, for example, I bumped into a neighbor and she was asking me what my new book was about, and I was telling her, and she was like, "Oh, I was telling her how like the second part was about like manifesting with your guides and angels and setting goals, and she was saying, I don't think I've set a goal since high school." And I was like, "Really?" And so I was telling her like some of the tips in the book, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I never thought of that. I never looked at it that way." When we're in our little worlds with like-minded people, we forget that what we have to share is interesting to some people, maybe not our family members and friends, but it is. And like bumping into that neighbor, I was like, yeah, this is new to a lot of people. And the way it comes through me is different than the way it comes through you or you or you. And so that's starting to chip away at my insecurity about doing stuff on social media. You know why, guys? This is what it feels like to me. When Mrs. Curtin in my ninth grade algebra class would write a complex formula on the board and be like, "Samantha, why don't you come up and show us how to solve it?" I was like, "Miss Curtin, that's never going to happen."
That's so great.
So what are some things right now that people could do if they're thinking about a creative project and they're like, yeah, I don't know, is that even going to be possible for me? What would you suggest that they do? Should they just write down some goals they have for different books? Do they start with the idea? Do they start with the need they feel? Do they begin with their experiences? Bring us to basics.
What's coming to me is that I have a freebie I could give your listeners that is a little free training video with a printable action sheet that is 5 questions to know which creative, get clarity around which book or project, it could work with that too, wants to come out of you first. And so I could share that if they need clarity. But if they don't need clarity around the idea, they know what it is. Speaking out loud, today I decide to do this. I commit to you. I know your listeners will totally get this. The book is inside of us, is waiting for us to tell it. I see you. I love you. I hear you. Tell me more. And so that is, once that conscious decision is made, I'm ready to listen. I commit today to birthing, releasing you into the world. It goes from a little drip from a fountain to a Niagara Falls, and the book will tell you. And then, as you know, the right doors will open, the right people will open. But making that decision we make when we are, as you know, the universal law of being, the universe will only give to us that which aligns with who we are at our core. And so if we're if we're wishy-washy, I don't know. Well, we're confusing the universe or God in a sense, what to give us. And so getting super clear. I am going to write a book, 2027. Like, awesome, great, okay. Or today I decide I'm going to birth and release a book. I see you, I love you, tell me more. And so making that conscious decision to do it
Yeah, I love
would
that.
be the
Thank
first
you
step.
for putting that so succinctly because you're right. Speak it into existence, put a date, a time onto it, put a deadline or a
Yes.
timeline on it, and birth it into existence. And I like how you said it's
Yes.
simple and not simple because every profound truth is simple and not
Mm-hmm.
simple at the same time. And your story echoes back to what you were saying earlier when you were 29 and you were asked, what do you want to do? And two things came to your mind. You spoke them out loud, and in 2 years, you
Mm-hmm.
had both those things, writer and
Mm-hmm.
mother. That's the way it works, people.
What you're offering is giving, and permission is an odd word, encouragement. Encouragement to people that they are capable, that they do have something to say, that there is help available, because it's kind of a literary minefield out there trying to figure out, do I put all my effort into self-publishing or through a traditional house? And exactly what you brought up about royalties and marketing and all those things. So the fact that you have this torch and you're helping other people light their own torch, it's not that you're doing it for them, you're helping them figure out how to do it on their own, is a beautiful, beautiful gift. So thank you very much for sharing that with our listeners, but also with so many people that you're working with.
I received that. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for letting me come into your space.
Oh, it's
I'm already in
incredible.
I'm already in yours in my earbuds, like I said when I do my makeup in the morning. So it was so fun. Such an honor to be in your space and be with your listeners in this way.
Well, tell people how to reach out to you, how they start, and what are some of the packages that you offer so they know about the torch you're holding for us all.
Yes, yes. So I would love to connect with you guys on Instagram at Hey Meg Calvin. And on my website, megcalvin.com, there are courses. I do offer a $47 memoir outline made easy, and then a $47 nonfiction outline made easy. And then there's a more intense prosperous writers boot camp, which is everything that I teach, but no Zooming with me, no access to the rest of my team that will actually publish the book, but it's everything that I teach on writing and marketing and getting it to bestseller status on Amazon without my team doing the publishing for you. And then I won't describe all 11, but there are some packages that are just, I want an audiobook on Audible with my voice or bring in a narrator. There is the just marketing, just build my brand package. There is the just publishing package. Then there is I call the manuscript facelift package, where someone comes with a completed manuscript. Like I do developmental structural editing. My partner Jody does copy and line editing, and then we publish it and then help them market it to bestseller. And then there is the everything package that is, I have an idea on a napkin. Can you help me write, market, sell it to bestseller status on paperback, Kindle, and Audible? And that is the everything package. It's coming to me to say that whatever the book has presented to you, listener, idea wise, I'm reminded of Molly Shannon in Saturday Night Live. She was notoriously known for, she would come into she's a goddess, let that be known. She would walk into the writer's room and she would say, I have this character that walks like this, and she'd do a funny walk, or she'd contort her face, or she'd do her hands in a weird way. And the writers would go to town. I think there's most likely someone who's listening to this that is thinking, it's too early for me to start a book because all I know about it is this. And I would say it's to take like Molly Shannon, all she had was a funny walk or a contorted face, but that was all the writers needed. And I think the same is true for us. The book gives us different things at different times. And if it's already telling you a question that you want to explore, you don't wait till you know the target audience or the title or even the genre. Just go with it and say, I see you, book, I love you. Tell me more. I'm listening. Thank you for letting me share that last part. Feel
That's
free to edit
great.
it
I
out.
love that metaphor and I love the way it came to you as well. It's so true. Sometimes we just have this spark and we just need someone to
Mhm.
talk to about it, to bounce it off with. So I think it's fantastic that you offer all of that. So it's megcalvin.com, everybody at Hey Meg. Is it at Hey Meg Calvin on Instagram? Okay.
Mhm.
At Hey Meg Calvin on Instagram. We'll post that in the show notes. Thank you again, Meg, for coming on the show. So happy to get to know you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Remember, as always, to show up, do great work, and share your light.
Take care.